Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my Zen garden. It's been a few months since we've been back here. I wanted to give you guys an update on how all the planters are doing. They're really full, they're really lush. I'm kind of done with them though, but they still look really amazing, so they're just gonna remain throughout the season. But I wanna bring you on a little tour around the back porch as well, where we sit and hang out and enjoy the sights and scenes of the Zen garden. And I want to give you a little update on the koi pond. If you remember from a few videos ago, we had a serious blue heron problem and we took some measures to protect the fish and protect the pond. And I want to give you a little update on that. So you ready? Let's tour my Zen garden. So it's been a few months since we've been on a tour in the Zen garden. So I thought today would be a great day to bring you out here and kind of show you how much everything's grown and filled in, how my fish are doing, and just to kind of, give you a little update. You can see some of the trees are starting to change color. Back here is spectacular when we get that full fall color. I'll have to do another tour then, although I'm pretty sure my pots will be done at that point, but you've got to see the fall color. It's incredible. And I think in the last video, I neglected to mention the koi sculpture. So that is carved from a tree. The former homeowner did that with a few of the trees around the property, and this one is actually my favorite one. So it's carved in the shape of koi, and we do have a koi pond back here, so it kind of goes with the theme. So let's do a quick tour of the plants that I have here, talk about how they're doing, and kind of talk to you a little bit about what I'm thinking for next year, and give you a little update on the back pond, and I will show you our back porch. So I'm standing by the gate that leads to our side yard and the formal garden. And this is the view of my backyard. You can see my dog going up the steps over there. And the plants really grew and really filled in quite a bit since we toured here last. I've got some beautiful dahlias in here. I've got a gorgeous bougainvillea that slowed down its flower production in the summer. I'm assuming because of the summer humidity. It was so humid. Maybe it didn't love it because it's really thriving now and it was blooming a lot in the spring. I do want to overwinter it this year. So I do want to figure out how to do it. I'm not sure where I'm going to keep it yet. I don't have a greenhouse and it's pretty big. So I might try to store it in my basement. If any of you have ever overwintered a bougainvillea before, can you give me some tips in the comments below, because this is my first time doing it and I would love to have your insight. So I do have some euphorbia and sweet potato vine that just got totally out of control. There are some geraniums in there as well, but you can't even see them because the euphorbia and I think it's diamond frost and my sweet potato vine completely took over. But it's gorgeous. I am going to have to rethink this. But now that I've seen how the bougainvillea grows and when it blooms, I definitely want to keep it in the garden. I love that color. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. So gorgeous. So gorgeous. The petals are beautiful. I've also got my colocasia. I'm going to be digging these up again and saving them for next year. The way I do it, now you can dig them up and just store the bulbs, but I actually dig them up and I put them in an old nursery pot with some potting soil, and then I just don't do anything with them. I put them in, I have a cottage out in the yard. It's heated. We don't keep it that warm, but it's warm enough. I don't water them at all. I don't take care of them at all. They're not getting any sunlight, but I just leave them there and then I bring them inside, usually on a warmish day in the winter, and I put them in front of a sunny window. I start feeding them with fertilizer and they bounce back really nice and they get that really nice growth. So I do cut them back though, so I don't leave the foliage and all that stuff. So it does get a flush of new growth in March or April, and then by the time I get it outside in May, it's almost ready to really leaf out and look beautiful. So it just gives it a little bit of a head start. I may put them in my basement this year instead of bringing them all the way over to the cottage, because it's just such a long trek and it's much closer to get them into my basement. But we'll cross that bridge when I get to it. New to my garden this year is clowning around caladiums, and I'm gonna be doing the same with my caladiums this year. I'm gonna dig them up, put them in a nursery pot with some soil, cut the foliage back, and just put it in storage until February. And then in February, when we start, you know, getting a little bit more light and the days start getting a little bit longer, I'll start feeding them, and then hopefully I'll have this beautiful foliage come May. But let me just tell you, I really leaned into pinks and shades of purple this year in this garden, and I really love it. Grass is a little bit big for my taste, but you know, I had it, I decided to try it, and you know, it is what it is. But I do love how it's kind of adding a little bit of a fall aesthetic here, and I haven't added any mums or pansies or anything like that, so you know, I'm kind of digging it. I do have some coleus in here. I've got some coral reef impatiens by Proven Winners. I love those. I love the color on them. Really, really beautiful plant. I will tell you that my drip system was on the struggle bus this year. You know, it was just kind of one of those things. I noticed every day my plants were getting droopy, and I was like, what is going on? Like, why are my plants drooping so much? And so I'm like, gosh, maybe they need a second watering. So I was out here manually watering these. And I'm like, man, why do I have to manually water these? Well, apparently my unit, my timer, needed batteries. So that was the cause. So if you're noticing your drip system is not working for any reason, check the batteries, because that very likely is the problem. So now everything's working great, but you know, I've had some plant suffrage as a result. So next year I'm gonna be really good about checking the batteries on all of my timers during the season, so I do not have this problem again. So anyway, I've got some geraniums that I overwintered the last 2 years. So these geraniums are 2 years old, and I'm gonna dig them up and do it again. And so what I do is I do the same exact thing that I do with the colocasia and the caladiums. I just dig them up. I don't cut them back though until they kind of like die back. I put them in storage, and then I break them out in February, and I start feeding them, and they leaf out and they start blooming around May. It's great. It's a great way to save money. Geraniums work really well with overwintering. You could really put them in storage. I mean, I would put these in my basement. I would put them in my basement. I would take the whole container, put it in my basement, and just kind of leave them be. I don't water them, leave them alone, and just come, you know, February, that's when you start taking care of them again, and they bounce back. They're great. Got some beautiful salvia, coleus that reseeded itself from last year. I actually dug a few out and moved them to the front yard. I do need to do some weeding, so we're gonna, you know, we're gonna skip over that part for now. I did have some double flowering begonias in here, really beautiful. My bacopa like went out of control, and I did cut it back like a few times. Wait till you see the other side of this bed. More coleus. We did do some hostas and pots. These were completely abused. But they were, I gotta get them out of the planters and put them in the ground. My husband made a secret garden that we never went out to. There's some poison ivy out there. So I said, let's move the planters here. And by the time we got them here, the foliage was already not really looking so good. So I think I'm gonna dig them out, and I'm gonna put them in the ground. And I'm actually thinking about doing an evergreen in here. Maybe like a dwarf Alberata spruce or something like that. And these are on a drip, so I'll just have to be mindful about coming out and watering the evergreens in the winter. So again, I've got more of my clowning around caladiums. Love, 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 love this caladium so much. Look at the detail on it. I mean, it's spectacular. It's from Proven Winners. It's really, really something. Like, look at how the foliage like curls. It's so cool. The veining, the color on it, really beautiful. Colocasia, again, my geraniums that I've had for a few years now. This colocasia might be the biggest, and it's because I have it in the largest container. And it's getting, I guess it loves the light here more than anything. I mean, they're all in pretty decent sized containers, but this just must get the right amount of light. Look at how big it is. But I underplanted it with apple blossom begonias, also from Proven Winners. And I have to say, I love the combination of the apple blossom with the colocasia and the euphorbia. So I didn't do any sweet potato vine in this pot. Usually I like to do like a spiller. I didn't do any bacopa. I just went with the begonias and the euphorbia, and I love it. I do need to do some cleanup out here, so please ignore the work that I need to do. Really love the combo. You could see my bacopa is like so out of control. I gave this a haircut twice this season, twice. And now I'm just at the point where it's like the end of the season and I just don't care. I mean, it is what it is. Then back here, I have another caladium. This one's called Bottle Rocket. Oops. Bottle Rocket. Also from Proven Winners, really pretty. I'm gonna save this one as well. There used to be, when we moved here, a beautiful evergreen tree, and we had the hottest, driest summer of all time. And I believe these rocks cooked the roots and it died. So I've been kind of trying to rework this area. And I think moving forward, I love all the flowers, I love all the greenery, but I do want to mix in some evergreens in here just to kind of get a little bit more solid color, kind of give your eye a place to rest in this garden. But you know what? You learn by doing. I love to play around with things, and I'm still really learning how things grow back here. So I'm excited. But I'm probably gonna start with 2 evergreens there and then kind of go from there. So also what I have in here, I have a bunch of my houseplants, and I really stuck a bunch under the tree because they need shade. I actually had this plant in a different spot and the leaf burned. I should actually cut that off. So I moved it under here, and it seems to like this light situation, just dappled light under the tree. I've got a couple of monsteras under there that are really doing awesome. I've got another begonia over here. And then here is the result of the blue heron. So I don't know if you guys remember, you can see my little fish, they're very happy. If you remember, we had a serious problem with the blue heron. It was terrible. He ate my fish and he kept stalking my pond. Every time we would go in the house, he would come back here. So we came up with a whole idea. I did a whole video on it. So if you want to see, hear the story and all that, I'm not going to take the time here, but you can go watch that video. We resolved it by doing a 4-pronged strategy. We made, and when I say we, I mean my husband, Chris, made this enclosure so that it couldn't walk up and just like fish the pond, because the pond is really only like 2 feet deep. And then we did these scat mats around the edge so it can't walk up and like pierce through the netting. And then to really keep it out, and this actually worked because it did come here and it did try to walk through this, we did green garden stakes with some fishing line around, just so if it walked up, it would walk into the line and not be able to get to my fish. And believe it or not, this worked. We do also have a ring camera back here, so just in case those 3 methods fail, I can yell at it through the ring. So that was our strategy. I do have a bunch of plants in here, and it was very hard to add the netting after the fact. So next year when we do plantings again, we're gonna have to be a little more mindful about where the plantings go, because it was a little tricky trying to do the netting around the plantings. So this pot also had a bunch of the apple blossom begonias, but they've been completely dwarfed by this totally overgrown sweet potato vine. I do have an asparagus fern in here and some bacopa. I'm gonna actually be redoing this whole thing. I think I'm just gonna put a beautiful mum in here and call it a day. That's just gonna be my fall decor, and I just haven't had a chance to get out here and do this. This just has been like last on my list to take care of, and clearly I haven't done anything with it yet. And finally, I want to show you the back porch. This is where we hang out and enjoy the Zen garden. It's really cozy. You can tell it's fall. I actually just blew the deck off last night. That's my dog Coda. And the nuts from the white oak tree just keep pouring down. The leaves are falling, and I mean, it's fall. I'm just not going to clean up every 5 seconds. So it is what it is. But I do have all of my houseplants out here still. I'm gonna be bringing them indoors soon. I do have houseplants on the front porch and I have houseplants back here. I have to make sure that I keep them out of direct sunlight, so a lot of them are up against the house. So I have some along the house and I have some under the tree that were just too large to fit over on this side. So I'll show you some of the plants that I'm growing here, and they're gonna be moved in probably in the next like 2 weeks. I gotta really watch the weather, but it looks like we're good so far for the next like 10 days, but you gotta watch, because once you start getting into the 40s, you know, I really do try to bring them directly indoors. So we'll start over at this end. There's the ring, there's our ring camera. So this is a fern that I have had for several years now, and this is my first fern that I successfully grew. Now, I have talked about being a complete failure with houseplants before, and that me and ferns weren't friends for like the longest time. Well, this is my fern bestie, and he does very well. I bring him inside. Does like some humidity, so I do group several plants around it indoors, and does very well inside. So, but he loves this spot. I actually used to have him over here, but he was blocking the ring, so I had to push him back. And he's huge, got so big this year. I'm not even sure if he's gonna fit in the spot that I've been maintaining him in, but you know, we'll see when we get to it. So I've also got this spider plant, and I need to do some work on it because you can see it's like splitting apart. So I actually am gonna need to take it out of this container and break it up into smaller plants. I'm probably gonna be giving a bunch away because I don't need this many spider plants, but it could stand to get a little rehab. When it starts getting that dead center, it's like begging you to be divided. So I've got a beautiful bird of paradise back there, some palea, and a couple of aloe plants. They're all babies from my mother plant, which I'll show you shortly. I've got a begonia that's seen better days, and another pilea, my Chinese evergreen. I've had this for years. Love, 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 love this plant. It's gorgeous, and it really loves being outside in the summer. This is our seating area. I have to say, because the curved deck is here, it was very hard to get some sort of seating out here because we wanted enough space for my family to be able to fit if we were all sitting out here. I mean, it's mostly my husband and I, or maybe us with like some friends or something, but you know, we really wanted to be able to fit people. And the curvature of the deck kind of makes that difficult. So I found this conversation set, and it works for us. We do move it around when we're out here. My husband always likes to move that chair closer to the pond so he can sit a little bit closer to the fish and watch them. But it's really like a great space to kind of hang out and, you know, just enjoy the atmosphere here. I love it. And I did hang that vintage window pane. I found it at a secondhand store years ago and just really fell in love with it. I just love those diamond panes. And I just hung a fall wreath on it just to kind of get a little bit of a aesthetic out here. I've got, you know, the buffalo check print pillows and some fall pillows, and that's my fall look. I'll probably be adding some pansies. I'll probably replace the begonias for some pansies and a couple of mums just to kind of top it off. So when we do the tour back here, when there's more color, I'll show you more of what I've done. And really it's going to change because all of these plants are going to go in, but love having the plants out here. So speaking of more plants, because I do have more, this is the mother plant of my aloe, and I've had this for years. Look at all the leaves. I've got a bunch of snake plants, and this is another propagation of one of my Christmas cactuses, which are actually over here. So see, I have more. I have a lot more. So let's talk about the plants. This Christmas cactus I have had for probably over 15 years. The pieces I've had branches break off, and so I've stuck them in pots and just continue to kind of regrow them. And you know, it's one of my favorite plants. It blooms a few times a year, and I just love a Christmas cactus. Are you growing one too? Because it's probably one of my favorite houseplants. This one is an Alocasia Dawn. It's gorgeous. Like the variegation of the foliage is, look at all that. Isn't that gorgeous? So beautiful. I've got another alocasia here. Really loving being outside. It was on the struggle bus for like, I would say March and April. It just seemed like it wasn't loving life. And then once I got it outside in the humidity, it did so much better. The same goes for my calathea. It was on the struggle bus indoors. It was very dry. Didn't love it. Once I got it outside, it put out beautiful foliage without all these issues. And it's a very fussy plant. I know it's gonna struggle when I get it inside, but you know, that's just, I'm gonna have to try and add some more humidity to the room. Grouping house plants together can help, and adding a humidifier. So maybe I'll have to add a second one. I don't know. Another propagation of my Christmas cactus. This is a Thai constellation monstera. It's got some new growth, but it's still, you know, it's still growing. Got a bird's nest fern over there, string of pearls, some pothos, more snake plants, and my split leaf philodendron. I actually have several of these plants, and not by design. I bought one plant several years ago at Lowe's. It had like 5 leaves on it, and every year I bring my houseplants outside. So I brought that houseplant outside. It like tripled in size, and at the end of 2 growing seasons, I had to split off the babies. Like you can see, you know, it has like a division in here. So I'm gonna have to dig that out. And so over the years, I've just gotten more and more split leaf philodendrons this way. I probably have a good 7 or 8 plants, and I'm gonna give probably most of them away this year because I don't need this many. And as beautiful as they are, they take up a lot of space inside. And, you know, as much as I have rooms, I don't want this many. So I'm gonna be giving a few away this year. But they're really beautiful plants, really easy to grow. And if you've never grown one before, if you see one, grab it. They're really easy, really fun. And they're really hard to kill. And so my plans for fall back here aren't really all that much because I let the foliage really do its thing. It's so gorgeous back here. I really don't need to do a whole lot. But what I do like to do, just to kind of jazz things up, is I tuck in sugar pumpkins on the wall and just kind of go around the whole garden. So we have a little bit of fall without having to plant crazy back here. I may tuck in pansies and mums. I'm not really sure. It really depends how much I do in the front because I don't really like to do as much back here. I just, like I said, like to tuck in a couple of pumpkins and kind of call it a day because I feel like the foliage and the plants back here in the backyard garden kind of really add to the autumnal display. And I do have my fall look back here on the back porch, and I'll add a couple pumpkins over here as well. And that's kind of going to be fall in the Zen garden. it, you guys. Thanks so much for joining me in the Zen garden today. I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy a beautiful day.